morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name is Ross, and as always told out of Voice of Radio, that today we're going to be taking a look at a winning Excadrill list. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. I was very excited about Excadrill when it was revealed. I'll pop a link to my video about that one in the description. And I'll tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, I am no less excited than I was. The excitement is growing and growing and growing. Shout out to the lovely Code64X on Twitter, as always, for being kind enough to provide the deck list. So, Excadrill then. Excadrill came out in Dream League. It's going to be coming out in Cosmic Eclipse over here. And it's a fighting Pokemon that excels with single energy attacks. Now, the main attack here is actually the second one, at least in the early game. 1 fighting energy, 120 damage, discard the top 4 cards of your deck. Now, 120 for a single energy is great. That's what people have been doing with Buzzwole for a while now, and it's good. Except Buzzwole only works if your opponent has exactly 4 prizes remaining. It's not exactly ideal. This is just a flat 120, 1 energy, go. That's pretty gosh darned awesome. Now, the first attack here is where you get the big damage coming in. It does 30 damage for a single fighting energy, but if there are 3 or fewer cards in your deck, this attack does 150 more damage. Now that I can get on board with. Now you're doing 180 for just a single energy, and now we can talk, ladies and gentlemen. And that really is the goal of the deck here. In the early game, the first couple turns, you do 120 for a single energy, and that's good. But then you end up doing 180 for a single energy on a stage 1, and you're just so consistent. And it really is a consistency here that makes this deck amazing. Single energy, stage 1 Pokemon, hitting for very good damage. Now, there are some other Pokemon we're going to need to get us rolling here, and there are a couple that are very important. First of all, we've got the Zebstrika that came around in Lost Thunder. The Zebstrika from Lost Thunder, basically, well, it discards your hand and draws 4 cards. It runs through your deck. That's the goal. Remember, your goal for Excadrill here really needs to be get through your deck as fast as you possibly can so that you can actually be doing 180 rather than 120. But in order for that to work, you've got to have 3 or fewer cards left in your deck. How do you get that rolling, ladies and gentlemen? Very simply, you use Zebstrika. Now, the other problem you've got here is you're going to deck out. Like, it's all very well and good going, hey, I've only got 3 cards left in my deck, I'm good to go. No! You're going to deck out. Well, that, ladies and gentlemen, is where we bring in the Fione that came around in Remix Bout. You see, Fione has a really nice ability. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon is on your bench, you may make your opponent switch their active Pokemon with one of their bench, then discard all cards attached to this Pokemon and put it at the bottom of your deck. And Pokemon isn't like so many of those other card games where cards come in exhausted or tapped and you have to wait a turn. No, it works straight away. And remember, your goal here is to basically go down to 0 cards in deck. So you're going to have 0 cards left in deck. You're going to have Fione on the bench. You're then going to use Fione to make your opponent switch their active. Now, that's going to get annoying because you're sometimes going to inadvertently make your opponent switch a Pokemon they want to switch, or your opponent can play into this, and that is going to be a pain. If they've got a Pokemon they really don't want you to attack, they can try and whack it in the active, and you don't really have much of a choice here because you've got to use Fione so you don't deck out. Unless you can keep 1 or 2 other cards in deck. Though there is nothing to stop you using multiple Fione to make your opponent switch more than once. But the point here is, I'm about to deck out, use Fione, goes to the bottom of your deck, you do 180 damage, next turn you draw the Fione, and you're off and you're rolling. It guarantees you're not going to deck out, and that's pretty important. This is how you hit for 180 for multiple turns without actually decking out. Now, we do also see Diancie Prism Star. It means you do an extra 20 damage. That's It's fairly standard, to be honest with you. It is pretty important. You're playing a Stage 1 deck with a couple different Stage 1 lines, so you're playing Ditto Prism Star, because it can evolve into any Stage 1, either of the two you're playing. We've got one of those Hooper from Unified Minds that does 10 damage, plus 20 for each of your opponent's Pokemon that has an ability. That's pretty gosh darn good. We've also got Mr. Mime that stops your opponent picking up a damaged Pokemon. Now remember, this is a pre-rotation list from Japan. Don't worry, we'll talk about how we fix it for post-rotation in a moment. But I don't know how relevant that's going to be post-rotation, if I'm honest with you. It reads, your opponent's Pokemon have any damage counters on them and any cards attached to those Pokemon can't be put into your opponent's hand. Super Scoop Up is seeing a fair amount of play. It will turn off Super Scoop Up, but it's mostly there for Ace Roller, which we're not going to have, so it's not going to be so important moving forward. Cool. Now, the thing that worries me about this deck post-rotation, and there really is only one thing. Every Pokemon I've mentioned will survive the rotation. There is one issue post-rotation, and that is Pokemon Search. Because at the moment, we're using Ultra Ball and we're using Nest Ball. But we're not going to have either of those post-rotation. Now, you're going to be playing a super fast deck, so you can play a whole bunch of item draw cards and then use Professor Round's Lecture. Except we haven't had a 60 HP Drillbur since that one that had absolutely ridiculous artwork. You see, the Drillbur we're getting in Cosmic Eclipse has 70 HP. And the Drillbur from Unified Minds has 70 HP. So they can't be searched out with Professor Round's Lecture. Now what we are going to have is Professor Oak's Setting. Lets you get 3 basic Pokemon of different types and put them onto your bench. Which can get you a Drillbur, a Blitzel, and a Ditto Prism Star, for instance. And then play some kind of speed list of a bunch of Acrobikes and other fast draw power. But it is worth bearing in mind, it is going to be annoying Pokemon searching. Everything else in this deck survives quite nicely. This deck does nicely post-rotation, except for the Pokemon search. Now, the other thing you're losing is Rescue Stretcher to recover your Pokemon. Honestly, after a couple of turns, you're not really going to be playing much in this deck at all, so using Brock's Grit to get your Pokemon and energy back shouldn't be a problem. I wouldn't worry about that. But it is going to be the Pokemon search that's going to be a bit of an issue. Now, in terms of your supporter line here, we play Lily, because it lets you draw a bunch of cards. It's fairly standard. But we also play Lily's Resolve here, a great card that just lets you draw 4 cards, and then if you've got more than 2 cards left at the end of your turn in your hand, you've got to put cards down until you've got 2 cards left in your hand. But this is such a fast deck where you're playing pretty much everything you draw into, that shouldn't be a huge amount of an issue. Plus, you can set your top deck for next turn. It's nice here. We also play a couple copies of Rosa. Rosa, if you had a Pokemon KO during your opponent's last turn, then you get to go and search for a Pokemon, which is going to be useful, a trainer, and a basic energy. So if you've just got a Drillbur out, this will get you your Excadrill and your energy and a trainer card. It's going to be one of the ways post-rotation that this deck can still keep rolling fairly consistently. Erica's Hospitality is another decent draw card that we play here. Draws 1 card for each Pokemon your opponent has in play, as long as you've got 4 or fewer cards in hand. And this deck does play a couple of Guzma, but honestly, you can play Custom Catcher or you can leave it. It's really not the end of the world. It's not the be-all and end-all in this particular deck. This deck wins by having a Stage 1 that hits for a single energy. That's the most important point. Now, we do see a couple of energy recycle system here, which I think is very good and very important. It puts 1 energy in your hand or shuffles 3 into your deck. You're going to have a lot of energy in the discard here, so this is quite nice just to make sure that you've got them when you need them. We've also got a couple of Lana's Fishing Rod, because Lana's Fishing Rod gets you back a Pokemon and a Pokemon tool. Now, we're not overflowing with Pokemon tools, but as you're going to see in a minute, we do play a few of them. But mostly here, this is just really good for getting back your Pokemon. We need to get your Pokemon back, and this is going to be there post-rotation to help us out. Speaking of those tools, we do play a couple of different ones here that we can take advantage of. We're playing Buff Padding. We've got a retreat cost of 4, Buff Padding gives you an extra 50 HP. Now Excadrill's up to 119, he's actually got a bit of staying power as well. We do play Choice Band, but that will be rotating out. And we play U-Turn Board here, which is really nice for retreating your Zebstrika. And a couple of your other Pokemon. Gives them free retreat, very nice indeed. We've also got Pal Pad here, which is really nice just for getting your supporter cards back. And there is a copy of Counter Catcher here, but honestly, you're playing one Counter Catcher to Guzma, just drop the 3 of them for free Counter Catcher and maybe add a 4th if you like. And of course, I should mention we are playing Martial Arts Dojo here. Along with Diancie Prism Star, this means that Excadrill's not really hitting 180. With Diancie, you're hitting 200. If you're behind on prizes, you're hitting 240. If not, you're hitting 210. This is a deck that can work. Yeah, post-rotation you lose a couple of cards that everyone else is losing. The biggest challenge post-rotation is just going to be setting this up, getting your Pokemon out. And if you can, this is a deck that's got a real chance moving forward. But I'd like to know what you think about it, ladies and gentlemen, so please do let me know in the comment section. Go nuts, be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at The Wassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassyPlays, where we talk about a whole bunch of games that don't even have any Pokemon in. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.